So if we could resume in public session, we have a presentation or a deputation from Karen D'Agostino concerning speeding on Port Ryerson Road. Mrs. D'Agostino, if you would like to take the podium, you have 10 minutes to make your presentation. And perhaps if you could push that talk button so that we can hear you.
Okay. Good morning. I'd like to start by showing you a picture of my family, which is a big reason why I'm doing this. And I'd like to read to you what I spoke to council last Tuesday about, and I may repeat myself slightly. Thank you for hearing me today. Let me say, as any mother, the things I ask for are not unreasonable for the safety of any child, dog, or person. If any of these requests slows down only one vehicle or motorcycle, then we have potentially saved the life of one of them. You are now hopefully aware of that there is an extreme problem at Port Ryerson Road, south of Radical. Pardon me. My road is an access to the beach of Port Ryerson, Turkey Point, many of the beaches along Lake Erie, and my house happens to be the very first one on Port Ryerson Road on the west side of Port Ryerson. I have 4 special needs boys who are rather rambunctious and very curious and excited, especially about tractors and their motorbikes passing by at ridiculous speeds. We were aware from the first summer, 2 years ago when we moved in, that this was going to be a big problem. However, this year seems to be the worst yet. I usually have the children camping for the summer, but we will be home a lot this year. I realized that I should have voiced my concerns and have my requests put in place much, much sooner for everyone on the road. After several phone calls and being directed to someone else, this has become my dedication to resolve for the safety of my children and others on our road. The speed in which traffic moves in front of my home is so dangerous. At times, the vehicles or motorcycles can blow your ears out. They're going so fast. It is not often that someone has reduced their speed to the posted 50 kilometers in the middle of the field just beside my home. On Friday the 13th, we are so close to Dover that we get tons of bikes going to the beach. This is the most dangerous time of all. On these days, there will probably not be enough OPP to cover my area. I've asked several times for police presence for the road. I have a deputation today with the police board. The police have placed a monitor at my home and found that there is definitely a problem with their road test, which was done during the week. I understand that there was another test to be done, hopefully this past weekend, as we had set for major burnouts. This will show far more than a week monitoring has. I'm told there will be more police presence when available. When available is the key word. Our police force, the OPP in Norfolk County, do not have the resources to have officers monitor my road very often. If often enough, the local people might learn to slow down, seeing the police on a regular basis, but the occasional once or twice a year person will not know and speed just as badly as they choose. I am so concerned at this point that someone may be killed on this road. Not only my children, but anyone crossing is at risk. There's a slight hill at the farm, making it difficult to see vehicles. This is not just an occasional problem, but daily. I have children that can never ride a bike, walk a dog, cross safely to the neighbors, etc. Pulling out of our driveways is difficult. If someone is coming up just at the beginning of the incline at a ridiculous speed, we could be hit. There have been several close calls with my neighbor. The hill over our little river conservation area has even worse hill to see over. There are many deer and raccoons also making the fast speeds dangerous. I have a petition nearly unanimously signed showing neighbor support for all of my requests to be carried out. Most have lived here many years and have not, knowing it is a massive problem, but have not done anything about it because their children are now grown and might not have time or energy to come to you with these issues. I know many are worn out over the fight with the windmills. I'm requesting a reduction of speed at Radical Road from 80 kilometers to 60 south of to Port Ryerson sign, and then the field just before property 39 Port Ryerson Road of 50 to 40 to the end to the stop sign. Children at play will also stop some. Another thought would be a camera. I believe there are posted warning signs, but the ones who don't care will blow through anyway, and another road sign making it a community safety zone fines doubles. These ideas could make the county quite a bit of money. This would be good for all to have more funding available. There is one neighbor that reminded me we need no passing signs for the entire road. There are some that pass a few going slowly, some right to the end and below the stop sign. At these signs, we'll reduce some for some, There are people who do not care about posted signs. Without a speed bump, there will be the idiots who will be speeding, some at extremely high speeds. A speed bump will stop all. Everyone has to slow down for a speed bump. You cannot go over it quickly. In all, it is necessary for all of my requests to be put into place. I've been told that Norfolk County does not support speed bumps. Do you think you might after someone is killed? Waiting for the inevitable to happen to do something is not the way to handle it. Then it is too late for that person. That person or persons injured or worse killed must have had no value to you. To the family, likely mine, they meant everything. So I'm afraid I may repeat a couple of things. This is the deputation I have written for you. So I have read you the deputation I gave last at council meeting. Thought you should hear what I had to say. Many of the things I have asked for should greatly help the OPP. Part of the problem is that there are not enough officers to cover these small hamlets. This actually makes us much more vulnerable. Many speeders, people who have no regard for the rules, know that it is very unlikely to be pulled over in these small rural routes. In fact, someone recently told me that if you follow the backcountry roads that don't have middle yellow lines, you can go as fast as you want. He says he goes 140 kilometers without worries. There'll never be an officer on those roads, he says. I'm a mother of 4 special needs boys at home and must be an advocate for the Port Ryerson issue. The road behind me is just as bad. Someone has to do something about the danger in our little community. A road radar test was done a few weeks ago and found that there is definitely a problem. Another test was done this past weekend, but I'm afraid that there will be no better results, as a woman from the bottom of the hill, having absolutely no idea what I and my immediate neighbors are living with, posted all over the Port Ryerson Facebook page, warning, warning, danger, danger. She has told everyone about the radar camera, as she called it, also using my family name. This concerns me a great deal, that there could be repercussions from those who have and will receive tickets. The test will no longer be accurate, as well as the rain slowed or stopped nearly all of our extra traffic. Hopefully a plea, maybe for more funding, could help, but only if that funding gives us a better presence of officers. My phone calls to the OPP are not considered 911 calls. Calls to the OPP through 911 will understandably take precedence to my speeding vehicles. The last call I made to the OPP took the officer 2 weeks to get back to me simply because of lack of staff for non-emergency calls. If you as the police board cannot do these things I've asked for, then you must join me in the fight to have these road signs, speed reductions, speed bumps put into place by the county. Please come forward to council with any findings you get showing the dangerous issues. There is no other resolution. There are only so many officers out there at one time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks, Karen, for your deputation this morning. I would have brought it up afterwards when we're discussing the issue, but I did hear you say in your deputation to us just now that last weekend the speed spy unit, to the best of your knowledge, went back up again?
Absolutely,
okay,
yes.
Okay. I had asked sometime between then and PD 13. I wasn't sure when it might have gone up, so I'm glad to hear it's been up already.
But it went up on both sides, but it's been spoiled. 103 people saw the post. I asked her to take it down. She lives down the hill. She has no idea what's going on. She's used my family name now. So.
Any other questions for Beck? Well, if you're going to take your chair, I guess that would be great. And there's Beck, do you have any comments you would like to make?
I would. First of all, thank you, Ms. Dagans, for bringing it forward. Just in a follow-up, there was one speed spy study done. The first one was done May 28th to May 30th, which showed a speeding issue with northbound traffic coming into Port Ryerson. This past weekend, actually the 21st of June to the 24th of June, we conducted a second speed spy study over the weekend, and it showed just the reverse. There wasn't a northbound speeding issue, but there was a southbound speeding issue. And the number of vehicles that were measured were roughly 1,500 each way. So it was double as to what was during the week. So there is more traffic on the weekends. Due to the first speed spy study, we have implemented a focus patrol, which we are currently running. So far, we've had 9.5 hours dedicated, 4 charges and 2 warnings issued, and we'll continue with that. But also, I personally went down and looked at the roadway, and I noticed, this was before the southbound traffic, I noticed that northbound, when you turn onto Port Ryerson Road, the first speed sign that you see is the 80 kilometer an hour sign up the road. There is no 50 kilometer an hour sign there. So anybody that turns the corner, the first thing they see is the 80 sign, which could attribute to some of the speeding as well. Also, the transition goes from 80 to 50. There is no 80, 60, 50. There's no transition there. So I reached out to my counterparts at the county who are on the collision reduction committee that I sit on, and Sean Van Acker is going to have a 50 kilometer an hour sign put up for northbound traffic as quickly as he can, and it's going to be in the area of 2 Port Ryerson Road. So hopefully that'll help with some of the northbound traffic. Gary Houghton got back to me, and I understand that they're looking at a new comprehensive speed bylaw later this year, which will address the immediate speed drops. So it'll be a transition from 80 to 60 to 50 rather than these sudden drops from 80 to 50. So perhaps cooperatively we can make it safer there. So Roads is looking at that. As for the suggestion of children playing in the area signs, I think that's a good suggestion. I'm not sure what department that comes through with the county, but those measures definitely would assist.
On that very point, Mr. Chair, I was just going to inform the board when the inspector was finished that following Ms. D'Agostino's deputation last week at Council and Committee did direct that a suitable children playing or caution children playing sign be erected southbound as soon as possible. That can be done just on the direction of Council, which it is. And secondly, relative to the speed reduction issue, second part of the motion that was passed was to direct staff to investigate appropriate speed reduction measures, i.e. possible speed limit changes, just exactly in context with what the inspector said. So that part of the solution has been put in place as of last week, and I'm really glad to hear that our inspector has been part of that discussion over the past few days. Ask a question perhaps on behalf of the deputation, but in terms of the response time that she raised an issue with us on, and with the PD13 event coming up shortly, as we know, and it being a big one, as we know, is there any opportunity for us to, in light of particular areas of concern that we know are routes that the bikers like to travel on good PD13 days, are we in a position to deploy any officers at all for extra speed control, for example, using this community just as our example today or elsewhere, but particularly this location on Ryerson Road that day?
As you are well aware, we bring in quite a few extra officers for PD13. We do have the regional traffic unit attending, and I will ensure that they're aware of the spots of concern.
Sorry, just with the rain this weekend, if you had 1,500 this weekend, it would normally be twice that. And with the rain, we did not see the blow-bys this weekend that we would normally see. So I'm afraid it was not an accurate test, just as a point. Thank you.
With respect to marijuana odors, any questions or comments on that? I think I have a few questions about it myself. And if we can go to page 11, and if we can go down to the 5th paragraph, where it says under the access to cannabis for medical purposes regulations, a registered or designated person is permitted to produce marijuana plants, yada, yada, yada. And if we go to the bottom line, it says other public place frequented mainly by persons under 18 years of age. Inspector, I was kind of curious whether a public place would be kids waiting for a school bus.
That is a very good question, and I would have to ask for an interpretation.
To be truthful, I wouldn't mind seeing that interpretation, because this is seems to be a hot button issue in Norfolk, that the complainants think that that the police are eunuchs and staff are eunuchs, and I'm kind of thinking that if there is something that can be done on the basis that they're growing close to where kids stand for a school bus, that might be a possibility. But there's also another point that they make 2 paragraphs below that. It says, in the context of an investigation, law enforcement does have the ability to enter residences. I guess I would like clarity on that one myself, is whether you are able to enter without a warrant, as the paragraph seems to suggest, or whether it's and whether it's just boilerplate, whether it's a context of investigation that you're already looking into something and you can enter that residence if you have a warrant.
We can enter a residence provided that we have the proper warrant to enter it for an investigation. We cannot just enter willy-nilly.
Okay, so basically that paragraph is underwritten and not providing clarity that a warrant would be necessary and that you would have to go to a judge and get reasonable and probable cause to enter that residence.
That is correct.
Okay, so it's misleading. Now that's fine. I'd like clarity on that. Jim, go ahead.
Same paragraph, Mr. Chairman, and it has always bothered me when I see the wording that we get from Health Canada on these kinds of things. What the heck does it mean to say a designated person should be prepared to show a copy of his Health Canada issued. I mean, does that say they shall, or they can if they want to, or they will if the OPP officer is intimidating enough that they bluff them into doing it? That's not really very helpful either, is it? As far as I'm concerned, I understood at some point that they would be required, in other words, shall present their certificate saying how many plants they can grow if requested by a law enforcement officer to produce it. But that's, boy oh boy, that's legalese if you ever saw it. Should be prepared to show. How would our staff interpret that particular part of that paragraph?
Through the context of an investigation, if we requested to see their license, I would hope that they would give it to us, because if they do not, then they would be in violation as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, absolutely.
Again, Mr. Chair, thank you for that, Joe, but is a complaint from a citizen, does that provide the context of an investigation? In other words, a citizen calls and complains that there's a greenhouse full of marijuana being grown across the road from them. They don't know what, if any, certificates they have authorizing that production. Will that constitute an investigation to the point where you could send an officer and either ask or demand to see their certificate?
What we would do would be contact Health Canada and determine whether there is a certificate for that location or not.
And we would do that in response to a citizen complaint?
Correct.
Okay. Well, that's something, Mr. Chairman. That's helpful, I think, and it's too bad that, oh, he is still here, good. I thought he was out with the deputation. But I think the public needs to know what avenues are available to them, and I think that's why these discussions are good at this board, and we have the same at our council meetings from time to time in terms of bylaws. So that is helpful. Thank you. Charlie?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And on the same line, certainly I've had a lot of correspondence with Mr. Wright, who initiated the email to me, which asked to go to you. Thank you for bringing this here forward. Mr. Chair, when I've been doing a fair amount of reading on this, and very clearly from Health Canada, more than one occasion I have read in their legislation, in their correspondence, that people holding federal licenses to grow, the wording is very similar to here. It says they are expected to obey the laws. They are expected to. Okay. We are all expected to obey the laws, so I buy that. And Mr. Oliver has talked about the wording here, and certainly on page 2 at the bottom, this is what it boils down to. In the context of an investigation, I'm repeating what Jim read, they do have the ability to enter residences. But I don't think that implies to me that an officer on a complaint from a neighbor can go up and say, we want to come onto the property and go into the greenhouses, show me your license, let's do a count, and go from there. Registered and designated persons, and here's the part that is really amazing, should be prepared to show a copy of their Health Canada documentation. Should be. Why not must? Because, Mr. Chair, in my opinion, a lot of this stuff that's going on, if I can use that term, complaints, smell, by an operation twice yesterday, not far from here, that the smell, it's just unbearable to think that people are living so close to it. And it's just wrong. It's just wrong. And if we had somehow knew from a legal aspect that on a complaint, the police could come in and say, let's see your license, or our bylaw enforcement officers, let's first of all see your license, and secondly, let's go have a look at the greenhouses. We could clear this thing up in no time whatsoever. And yet it's going on and on and on and on. It's very frustrating. I clearly have no disrespect to Health Canada, but I don't think they've really thought this through from start to finish. Some have even gone as far to say that a letter from my family doctor to me saying that I need 1 gram of cannabis each day for my sore back. And I have no problem with that. Will allow you to grow 24 plants on your premise, and I have no problem with that. But some of them go as far to say that that is a medical document between you and your physician, and it is not a public document. It is not something that you have to hand over to any enforcement personnel. We really need somebody to get something that will allow us to go in and check what my license says I'm allowed to grow on my premise, and that in fact I'm doing it. And anything different from that, over and above that, should be grounds to charge the person. That's my personal opinion, and I don't know. It seems to me this could be solved so quickly. And yet, I believe there is one case here in this county now that is going to court. And we know how long that could be tied up before a decision is rendered. It could be 1 year, 2 years. In the meantime, the problem still exists, day in and day out. It's just... So, law enforcement does have the ability to enter residences. Is that happening? And if it is, why or why not? Oh, in the context of an investigation. Oh, okay. But we've heard the response, and it's probably 100% correct. It's not just drive by, oh, I smell a lot, there's been complaints here, let's take the cruiser in and let's see your license, let's see the number, let's get into the greenhouse. I don't think that's happening, and I'm not sure that legally you can do that. I don't know. I could go on and on. This is really frustrating. If you have a license that says, Charlie, you legally can grow 50 plants, then I better have 50 plants, and there better be something in place that allows our enforcement bylaw, our police, to go in and do that check based on a complaint. I don't think we're there.
Thank you for your comments. I think we're concerned about hiding behind privacy concerns too, so hopefully the inspector can come up with some interpretation of what a public place is and whether there's anything that we can hang our hat on. And certainly it would appear that there's some big flaws in being able to enforce some of these other items, so I guess we'll have to proceed based on the law that we're aware of and bylaw that has been passed by council being the strongest weapon at this point. So, are there any other further comments on this? Seeing none, if we could move on, we'll put the paragraph on under business arising for next meeting. Email from Joe Lewis, item 7C. Speeding on New Lake Shore Road in Port Dover. Any questions or comments on that? Charlie?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. This is certainly, just so the Services Board know, this is something that surfaces from time to council. I'm very familiar with this area as being a former principal and teacher at the former Doverwood School, but certainly the email, Mr. Chair, from the Lewises about the stretch of road, they're right on the money. There is large development taking place, continues to take place, and will take place to the further east up on the Dover Coast development. Of course, the school's gone, but that section of road between You turn off at John Street there at the top of the hill on the east side of Dover. You can turn on to Pansy and go down across Erie in Ontario. There's a four-way stop, I believe, in Ontario. Then it's straight on through until you hit the other side of the sewage plant going east and hit Woodhouse and Marden Ave, et cetera. But I believe there is a four-way, and I can't recall whether it's at Marden or Lakeshore. The problem is that section of the new Lakeshore Road is very narrow. There's a lot of people jogging on it, they're cycling, and to avoid going to town down number 6 to the north. And the ditches are very deep on both sides of that road. So it's a tight road with a lot of heavy traffic. And yes, they speed along there as we know people do. So I don't know what the answer is. Council at this point, I don't think is prepared to reconstruct that road and put sidewalks. There's no room for sidewalks. It's very similar in shape to the road I live on, Hillcrest, where there's maybe that much gravel on each side of the pavement, and then you're into the deep ditches. So in an urban area, the nature of the traffic flow and the way that people are using this road has changed very much because of the large development to the east, but I think sometime this is going to have to be addressed. And I think it's something the council is going to have to address because it's pretty tight. Thank you.
Other questions or comments on this? Jim?
Maybe a question to staff, if I could, Mr. Chair. Gentlemen, would it be appropriate? Is this our first complaint that you've been made aware of in this section of road, and is it something where we could deploy our speed spy to make our usual determination of how much of a focused patrol might be required there, if any?
This is the first complaint that I'm aware of along that road, but we can definitely put it on the speed spy list to see what the exact issue is and go from there.
Okay, well, thank you. And I think that's a reasonable response. And any other questions or comments on that? If we could move on to, I need a motion accepting as information 7A to 7C. Moved by Carol, seconded by Dave. All in favor? If we could move on to the inspector's report.
We do have one more item here. I'll let staff fashion if he's aware of what it is.
Yeah, we've got a check to the Police Services Board from Police Auctions Canada for the amount of $35.88.
So if we could have a motion accepting that into our proceeds of crime, moved by Charlie, seconded by Jim. All in favor? Thank you. Go ahead, Inspector.
Okay, the operational statistics and highlights in regards to May 2018. 2018 overtime allotment per the contract, $366,903. Spent to date, $142,364.24, which equates to 38.8% of the budget. Locally, dedicated hours of overtime, I'm just going to get right to that. For May 2018, we have 792.88 municipal hours and 373.13 provincial hours. Normally I would have the calls for service billing summary report for May 2018. However, there was a glitch in the software, so I don't have that report to produce right now. We have 2 tributes were received for Constable Sandchuck, one for helping the St. Joseph School, and one from the Lions Foundation of Canada in regards to the Houghton Men's Breakfast. Crime Stoppers activities for May 2018. There have been 196 anonymous tips received so far this year. Student Crime Stoppers, student bursary applications were received from secondary schools in Norfolk and Haldimand counties. After deliberations, Bella Whitman from Higgersville Secondary School was selected as the recipient of the William Courtnage Memorial Bursary. Dunville Secondary is hosting their second annual breakfast on Friday, June 1st, which is passed. Promotions, presentations, meetings, they participated presented to, and gave promotional items to the Golf Committee, the Gala Committee, Norfolk Mutual, St. Williams Neighborhood Watch, and the Special Olympics. Fundraising, they had a shredding day in Simcoe on Saturday, May the 12th. It was a great success, raising $800, and they had one Saturday, June 9th in Caledonia. The Spring Gala was held on May 3rd at the Jarvis Lions Community Center. It was a great success, raising over $7,500 for Crime Stoppers, and the golf tournament is to be held August 16th at the Mont Hill Golf and Country Club. That's about it for Crime Stoppers report. On to the analytical report. If we move right over to the colored graphs. All violent crime for the month of May, based on a 5-year trend, it was estimated that Norfolk County Detachment could expect between 31 and 48 events. During the reported month, 43 actual events were investigated. Assaults, based on a 5-year trend, it was estimated that we could expect 22 events. During the reported month, 23 actual events were investigated. Domestic disturbances, based on a 5-year trend, it was estimated that we could expect 53 events. During the reported month, 42 actual events were investigated. All property crime, based on a 5-year trend, it was estimated that we could expect between 116 and 155 events. During the reported month of May, 127 actual events were reported. Break and enters, based on a 5-year trend, it was estimated that we could expect 19 events. During the month of May, 18 actual events were investigated. Frauds, based on a 5-year trend, it was estimated that we could expect 16 events. During the month of May, 14 actual events were investigated. Mischiefs, based on a 5-year trend, it was expected that we could expect 32 events. During the month of May, 30 actual events were investigated. Theft from motor vehicle, based on a 5-year trend, it was estimated that we could expect between 13 and 17 events. During the reported month, 17 actual events were reported and investigated. Again, we continue with the lock it and lose it. Theft of motor vehicle, based on a 5-year trend, it was estimated that Norfolk County Detachment could expect 8 events. During the reported month, 14 actual events were investigated. Theft of vehicle events reported above the projected range for May. Further analysis shows no particular pattern for the thefts as they occurred throughout all parts of the county, as well in our neighboring detachments. Had issues. Theft under $5,000, based on a 5-year trend, it was estimated that Norfolk County could expect 56 events. During the reported month, 42 actual events were investigated. Moving on to illicit drugs, based on a 5-year trend, it was estimated that Norfolk County Detachment could expect 9 events. During the reported month, 4 actual events were investigated. During the month of May, there were 9 persons charged with 32 charges. 9 under the Controlled Drugs and Substances Act, 17 criminal code charges, and 6 other related statute charges. No warrants were executed. There were 15 drug seizures valued at $4,646. There were 9 property seizures, including $18 in Canadian currency. There were no vehicle seizures during May. And year-to-date, drug seizures total 198 with a value of $146,685, and year-to-date property seizures total 189 with a value of $16,593, and year-to-date 6 vehicles have been seized with a value of approximately $11,500. Collisions. All collision types for May reported below the projected range at 67. All collision types did see a decrease of 23 from May last year. And year-to-date, there's a decrease of 0.8% observed from the same time frame last year for all collision types. Property damage collisions for May reported below the projected range at 55. Property damage collisions did see a decrease of 11 from May last year, and a year-to-date increase of 8.5% was observed in property damage collisions for the same time frame last year. Non-fatal injury collisions for May reported below the projected range at 11. Non-fatal collisions did see a decrease of 13, or 54.2% from May last year, and year-to-date there has been a decrease of 33.8% observed from the same time frame last year. So our non-fatal injury collisions are decreasing. Yes, our property damages are going up slightly, but it appears that people are slowing down at least, so we're not getting the high impact collisions. Non-fatal injury collisions total, as I said, total 11 for May, and reviewing the collisions, they ranked as follows. We had 3 inattentive drivers, 2 follow too closely, 1 an improper turn, 1 a fail to yield right of way, 1 fail to share the roadway, 1 disobey traffic control. We had 1 off-road vehicle collision, and we had 1 that fell under the other categories. Fatal collisions for May reported above the projected range at 1, and therefore we saw a 100% increase from May last year. However, year-to-date, we have a decrease of 50% in our fatal collisions from the same time frame last year. The 1 fatal collision occurred on May 25th on McDowell Road, and it was a 2-vehicle collision. 911 calls and hang-ups. During the reported month, based on a 5-year trend, it was estimated that we could expect between 189 and 239 911 hang-up calls. During the month of May, we received 190 calls. Alarms. During the reported month, based on a 5-year trend, we could expect between 48 and 74 alarms. 63 alarm calls were investigated. Impaired driving, based on a 5-year trend, it was estimated that we could expect between 6 and 14 events. During the month of May, 6 actual impaired driving events were investigated. Mental Health Act, based on a 5-year trend, it was estimated that we could expect 40 events. During the reported month, 49 actual events were investigated. During the month of May, our members investigated the 49 Mental Health Act related occurrences, dedicating 254 3/4 hours to their investigations. The average year-to-date time spent per Mental Health Act call is at 6 hours. And of course, the Mental Health Act events reported above the projected range for May.